Chao.
Chao, that's right.
All right. Well, good morning. Good morning, Ryan. I want to introduce you to A1 agents. For those of you guys that don't know who Ryan Chao is, Ryan's an exclusive agent here in Georgia. He started his insurance journey in 2015 as an agency owner for about 2 years. And then he also managed for Craig Wiggins, who was one of the top agents in the country for about 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then in August of 2019, he purchased a small book and then went on to grow that thing to nearly 1.6 million each year to about a $4 million book in only 2 years. We good there?
That's right.
All right. Ryan, in my opinion, has a superpower for data, processes, and working smarter. I'm really grateful to know people like you because you're good at the stuff that I'm typically not good at, and so it's a blessing to know people like you. So Ryan, thank you for being with me today.
Thanks, man. It's a pleasure being here, man. I like what you've done so far with your channel and your podcast.
I appreciate you, man. So for my audience that doesn't know who you are, tell them a little bit about your story.
Oh gosh, well, a lot of you guys, I came in this thing where blind, and actually, after day one, eyes wide open. Holy cow, what did I do? What did I get myself into? The overwhelming feeling of defeat every day in some ways, and the fact that I loved spinning a lot of plates at one time. So that first impression I have of this industry, right, or as business ownership as a whole, was extremely overwhelming. And I thought I was going to come into my first adventure, especially in the insurance industry, and crush it, just because of my past experiences, right? I knew what I was doing in my previous jobs and my previous journeys, but when it comes to jumping in business ownership, and you're on your own and you've got to manage every aspect, man, it could be overwhelming, right? So I started my first business from that perspective of not knowing what I didn't know, right? The innocence and the blame game of no one told me like this. They all told me, they gave me the rainbows and the flowers, but I quickly realized how difficult it was, and the fact that I didn't have a process, and the fact that I didn't know how to establish one. I chased advice from successful agents that didn't even know how they were successful. They were just successful inherently. You know how it is. People that have those values or those inherent characteristics that they have just from nature or nurture, but they are successful. So I would try to have them mentor me. I would take their advice, I'd implement it, screw it all up, and end up just putting a bunch of money, time, energy, and effort down the drain. So what I did was, instead of being as successful as I thought I would be, I was semi-successful. And I knew in order to make this thing work, to jump into this industry and be able to be as successful as I had hoped for, I needed a plan. And I needed to understand how to create a process around it and be able to repeat it. So I sold my agency. I stepped out. Craig Wiggins hired me, said, hey, man, he had a $10 million agency in Georgia. He said, look, we want to get this thing and bonus and, crush it. And we want to bring you in. So I accepted the job, jumped in, and they began to pour into me. And I would say, I thought, I was going to crush it when I first started. Now I knew I was going to crush it when I went back to agency ownership.
Okay.
It was amazing. So that was my first step. I got in, said, holy cow, this is crazy. I need to have a better plan. And I took 2 or 3 steps backwards in my life and in my career in order to catapult me years beyond, further than as if I was trying to do it on my own. Jump back in the industry after on my own again in 2019 with a plan, knowing how to replicate it, watching the best of the best, and then creating a process around it. And when I made that commitment to start my new agency, it was not to be mediocre or to hit my minimum numbers or my quote unquote baselines. It was to absolutely crush it. And I knew how to do it and write 100,000 in premium every month. And I've never missed it since because I had a process. And so that was my journey. It was humbling. And it was that willingness to take a sidestep, a few back steps in order to get back to where I wanted to be. So I had to kind of put my whole entire, and my ambitions, my visions, my goal, I had to put all of that to the side of where I thought I should be. And I took the steps necessary to get there and beyond, but totally outside the timeline that I ever thought it would be. So, but that's where I'm here today. And that's how we've gotten to that 4 million mark, because of the sacrifices and the grind I was certainly willing to go through in order to get there.
Yeah, and you've hit the ground running so far. I mean, I'm just comparing, where I spent my, took me 5 years to get my $5 million agency, and here you are literally just hitting the ground running. So I'm pretty sure that time off really, not that time off, but that step back really propelled you. So that's awesome, Ryan.
Yep.
Have you always been pretty process oriented your whole life, or is that something you kind of like adopted later?
Well, I ran a business for my father. When I graduated from college, I started with him, and I came into chaos, and I operated in chaos for several years. And then we started to grow. We started to bring more people in, and I had to manage them. And it was so hard to manage them with chaos. So I started bringing in processes, writing them out, trial and error, figuring out what worked, what didn't. And before you knew it, I was able to scale. I was able to add people. It was labor intensive. So I was able to add people with the process, add people, and we scaled from 1 million up to 15 million very quickly, because I had a process and I had a way to measure it, and I had a way to take someone through it and add expectations and then say, repeat this tomorrow, repeat this tomorrow, repeat this tomorrow. And it started adding up, and we profitably scaled, and we were a profitable business when it was able to be sold. That's where, oh, wow, there you go. Only the wife has the emergency, the bat phone. I apologize. but that, honestly, that's where it all started, is out of necessity, out of complete anxiety and anguish, and a lot of, lost sleep at nights. It was horrible. It was horrible. So creating that process and setting expectations, and then accountability from me, which was the weekly meetings with my team to go over the process, review it with them, and then hold them accountable. That's the only way we could repeat it and find success. So I applied that in my other ventures, but in agency ownership, I didn't know what I needed to know. I didn't understand the process. When you talk to other agents, they seem to have a process down, but you don't really understand it until you're literally drinking from the fire hose, right? And by that time, you're in it. By that time, you're working day to day, right? But you don't have a process in place. And by the time you come back and decide to establish a process, you've already let chaos take control, and your agents are working in chaos. And when you try to organize it, that's when all hell breaks loose, right? You lose agents, they get upset because they've established their own way. You want to come in and be controlling and, create your way. And it kept me from wanting to do that, because I was saying, okay, we found something that's working. I don't know how it's working, but it's working. And I never wanted to meddle with it. But that's when I was able to break away, go to Craig, and they poured into me again. And I got to see how it was really done. And then I was able to come in with a process before day one. And I've just been improving on it every day. So everybody knows what they're doing when they come into the agency. Everybody knows what's expected of them. Everybody knows, and they're anticipating our reviews. They already know what I'm going to be talking about, because they know if they're hitting their activities, or they know if they're hitting their number or not, right? Because I've set the process and the expectations. So I grew into it out of necessity, out of getting my butt kicked, out of trying to grow and hit goals that were unattainable. I couldn't achieve them like the other guy down the road was. And whether the other guy down the road knew it or not, they had a better process than me. They just did. They may not have had something in writing. They may not have been able to articulate their process, right? But they had something that they were repeating every day that we just weren't doing in our agency. So that's where the experience comes, and then you create that process based on your failures, right?
Mhm.
And that's basically, it wasn't inherent. I wasn't a process driven kid. I was as ADD as they come, and all over the place, high energy, needed 1,000 things at a time to go on in order to keep me engaged. So that's the way I had to keep organized, to stay organized, to find success in something repeatable,
And
So
that makes me feel good about myself, man. I didn't think that. I don't know. Maybe I just assumed that you were like a type A personality, like that, and you're not like me, like ADD. I don't know,
Oh man.
but it gives people like me confidence that I even like I heard the other day, it's like, why do we go on our lives like telling ourselves things like, I'm bad with numbers, and when you say these things, then you're really limiting yourself. And me looking at someone like you, like, I don't know, with just me knowing you this short period of time, because I haven't known you very long, but if know your numbers was a person, like, I feel like you would be that person. And
That's what I've had to grow into, though. That's what I've had to grow into, because it was my weakest side. Organization, accountability, and a process, dude, I never knew in many ways when I was younger how I actually found success. I just magically got there, but I couldn't tell you the story. I couldn't tell you a process behind it, right? And if you don't have a process for success that you can go and show others and articulate it and be able to repeat it every day, I promise you, you're always going to be in a growth mode in your life. And let me explain what growth mode is. Growth mode is always having to invest either all of your time and all of your money to try to figure out what makes you successful. And if you're reinventing yourself every day, and you're always having to grind something else out, or grind another marketing strategy out, or grind another new hire out, or grind another quote out, or grind another process out because you don't have anything proven, then I'm telling you right now, it's chaos every day, and it's not scalable. So a lot of guys come in, they invest in their business, right? They come in, they say, okay, well, the other guy down the street is doing this type of marketing. I find that hard to believe that he is crushing it. I'm not, right? So they go and they take his marketing strategy or his vendor, whether lead sources he's bringing in, and they try to implement into their agency, but they don't have a process behind it. So that lead source or that strategy or that marketing plan creates chaos within their agency and destroys the culture or the mojo they had, the little bit of mojo that they had going. And that's putting a square peg in a round hole. I used to do that. That was like my mode of operandi. Keep trying something different until I figure out something fit, right? But at the end of the day, the problem was it was just chaos soup, and all I was doing just pouring more in there. And it was just kind of, just mixing around. And then I would get upset at the person that gave me the bad advice when they gave me a great advice, but I just didn't understand the right process. I didn't have it behind, to support like the marketing strategy or the agency or the business model. I didn't have any kind of processes behind it to support it. And man, it's proven to be extremely profitable. There is a way to actually, scale profitably, but if you don't have anything that holds it, like hold yourself accountable to basically three sectors, which is your marketing, and you have your sales processes, and then you have your pipeline management. I figured out those are the three key things. And I was weak on accountability on all of that. When I started my agency, I knew how to put a process together with what I knew. But what I didn't know, I didn't have a process. And so I reverted back to my instincts, which was just get it done every day, come in, no plan at all, except to just write business, right? And whatever happened. Man, you can't scale that. You're always in growth mode. And I'm telling you, every business that you talk to, whether it's Amazon or any other huge company, they're going to tell you when they go into growth mode, it's and for example, the carrier that we're with now that we represent, when we're in growth mode, it's not all about profit. It's about growing. And it's about trying something new. It's about revamping. And when you revamp and you're doing that on a weekly or a monthly basis, your team has no sense of security within the agency or within the company, because the person at the helm is coming in and changing something every day or every week and every month. And they don't have any faith. They can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, so they leave you.
Mm.
So imagine this, Nick, in our interview, let's say I'm interviewing you for a position at my agency. And you come in and you say, hey, man, I love this opportunity, love to talk to you about it. And we're interviewing, and all I can do is present to you, well, I got really good agents here. They've been here for this long. And, you know, we take some calls and we make some outbound calls and we try to write as much business as we can. Hey, I want you to just contact your friends and family, which is a great way to do it. But that's about it. You're going to write off that, and then I'll kind of figure out a way to help you with business once you kind of get up over this hump. That's it. That's how a lot of our interviews go. It's just a conversation, but at the end of the day, that conversation has not proven how you're successful to that person you're hiring or that you're interviewing. And if that person is worthy of being at your agency, then they're worthy of probably being at another agency or another agency. You need to show them and map the way out for them to find that success for themselves. You got to be able to tell them the marketing plan, communicate that. This is how we're going to go to market. This is how you're going to do this. And then you got to show them the metrics, a process behind it. Like, this is the activity behind this marketing plan that we got to put in. And then this is how you're going to sell. I use Craig Wiggins coaching, obviously. This is the best platform in the world that you're going to use to basically make sure that that marketing I'm spending, we get an ROI on that, right? And then if we don't close that business, where does it go? Where does it go? It goes into a pipeline. And what happens in that pipeline? How do we manage it? Are we following that prospect all the way to a sold? Are we, extating, or meaning that, are we putting that prospect in a future workflow to basically come back to us? How are we managing the three criteria in the business: marketing, sales processes, and lead management? If you can't communicate that in an interview, Nick, and you can't show somebody how they're going to make money with your agency, and you can't set the standards in the offer letter, and you cannot put the requirements and communicate those effectively and positively to them, very hard to set that precedence and then have them use your process for success and implement it on day one if you're not setting expectations. So if you live by chaos, you're going to die by chaos, and you're always going to be in growth mode. And I'm telling you, you get a great hire, a great opportunity for somebody that's very, very good, and you can't show them the light at the end of the tunnel. It's because you're operating under chaos and you can't effectively communicate your process for success. And they could smell that. I'm telling you, in an interview, they can see that and say, it seems a little, don't know exactly what's going on here. Doesn't really seem like he's got a lot going on. And as far as, a process. So a lot of people that you actually interview in a chaotic type environment, if they come on, they're not going to be successful. And you're going to blame that new hire. That new hire may have had the skill sets and the talent to be successful, but you didn't have anything in place for them to repeat every day. And you didn't have the right expectations to hold them accountable. And you didn't have a way to measure.
Mm-hmm.
That, buddy, it comes from years of failure before I figured it out. So I try to keep it simple. I try to keep it easy for my, my employees to understand. And I try to hold them accountable every day and every week and every month to what we set in place. And then as they hold themselves accountable, they end up hitting goals. I mean, I have higher minimums here than most any other agent, but I have that because I can tell them, I'm going to spend this much money on you. If you give me this activity and you repeat this talk path and give me life, energy, and then follow up, I guarantee you, you're going to write this much business. And I never fail. The people that fail are the ones that don't live up to the expectations that were set at the time of interview, at the time of hire, at the accountability meetings. Those are the ones that exit out with me and say, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm sorry I wasn't the right fit. They're apologetic because I do my job every day and I repeat it. Instead of coming into chaos, a lot of people are going to find shelter under that chaos, and they're going to kind of do their thing. And then when you come in and try to measure it, when you have nothing to measure because you didn't have a process or you didn't set your metrics in place, then how do you hold them accountable? Right?
Right.
You can't. Chaos does not organize chaos. It just doesn't. So I learned that very much the hard way. And I'm as 80, man. I mean, seriously, if there was a squirrel in this room, I would not be able to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
So that's just, so you have to set expectations up for yourself every day, because accountability is just good intentions. I mean, I would say a process, is just good intentions without accountability. And you, and many times are at the helm, if you have some kind of manager within the business, you got to make sure that either you are holding your team accountable or the manager's holding them accountable, because they're not going to repeat it every day unless you're on them.
Can you give me an example of what what some of your expectations are?
Well, gosh, are you talking about in the sales process? Are you talking about in the marketing? Okay.
Yeah.
So in the sales process, well, every single company, first of all, is different. I got to talk about marketing. I bring in a ton. I do a paid lead marketing. I buy all of my leads. I bring in warm leads. So I hire highly talented agents that are very good at closing, very good at building rapport, are energetic, right? Getting everything on one call, and they close it. So how can I have a high outbound calling metric, right? Telephone, when all I'm doing a ton of inbound and they're getting their 5, 6, 7, and 8 quarter households a day? I don't care how that happens, right? So it's hard for me to take metrics from you, like, hey, how many calls do your guys make? Oh, we make 250 calls a day. Can you imagine me going out to my agent and be like, you guys make 250 calls a day. This other guy down the road is making 250 calls a day. That's why you're not writing business. No, we have different marketing.
And we do that a lot. We're all guilty of that. I know I'm guilty of that, especially when those, reports come out on how the market's doing, and you see where you're stacking up against people. You're like, oh, what the heck? This is preposterous. Like, what are they doing? And then, everything you're saying is totally making sense here.
So don't ever put a square peg in a round hole by comparing yourself to another agency's success. And then you go to them and you say, well, what metrics are you living off of? And they say, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm repeating it. And okay, that's great. But when you take their square peg and you want to put it in your round hole in your agency, buddy, be ready to experience some culture change. Some people are going to be coming in. You're going to get some highly talented people that didn't grow up thinking I'm going to make 250 outbound dials a day when I grow up, right? But they're writing a bunch of business. And then you come in and say, hey, we're going to change our marketing strategy. We're going to make a shift. And all of a sudden they go from writing what you were considering to be really strong down to half of that. And we're all guilty of it. And we don't know why the change or what caused them to no longer write as much business as they were. It's because they're not happy. It's because you went in there and you took someone else's methods and you tried to bring it into your own, put a square peg in a round hole. You're not finding success. The agency culture goes to crap and you end up firing people, right? And it ends up being a nasty mess. So you got to make sure when you're asking someone like me, what are your metrics or what's your agent activity look like? Man, honestly, you're missing the boat. It's, man, what is your business? What does the whole process look like from marketing? And based on that marketing, right? I could be doing organic marketing. I could be doing nothing but mortgage brokers. I could be basically bringing in realtors and networking referrals. Then you have to develop a sales process and then metrics behind that marketing plan and strategy. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So it's not just an easy question, an easy answer. Too many of us take the wrong advice because the agent's successful. We take the wrong advice and we try to implement the wrong advice into our agency, and we find continual failure. And what happens when we find that continual failure? We get discouraged. We start to lose hope, right? And then in that discouraged moment, the agency, they feel it too, right? Then they get discouraged. So you're messing up your mojo by taking bad advice all the time. So this is what I would say to you, Nick. I want to know your marketing strategy. First of all, you have two marketing strategies, essentially. You have an organic, which you're generating business by word of mouth, referrals, and so forth. And all you're doing is in exchange for that, you're exchanging your time, right? So for that lead, you're pouring your time and energy into those referral partners, right? Or time is money, right? And what is money? Money's time. Would you agree? I mean, my time is worth money, or if I don't want to spend time on something, I spend money for something else, someone else to do it, right? So time is money, money's time. So you've got leads that you can generate from an organic, time-intensive approach, or you can buy leads and bring warm leads to your agency so that you can sit your butt in the seat and manage it and go from that approach. From there, guys, you start putting together your marketing strategies based on that marketing plan. So the best question to me is to ask, what are your marketing strategies, man? And I'll tell you, I do mailer strategy. My marketing strategies for my agency is mailers, live transfers, and then I have an in-house telemarketer that is calling on some age data, and I am finding success from all three of those. That's why I continue to repeat them. Okay, so if you continue to repeat the marketing strategies, now you got to set up sales process around it. So on mailers, there's a process. There's a sales process around an inbound caller on the mailer. What's the elephant in the room? The bait and switch quote, right? You're always assuming the best case scenario when you're putting an estimate together and sending it out to the prospect, right, Nick? So when that prospect calls in, a lot of people can't stand the mailers because they're always complaining, well, all they're doing is just getting upset with us because we present one price and then we give them the real quote. Well, there's a process around addressing the elephant in the room before you ever start a quote, right? And so several people are going to hit me up and say, Ryan, what's your process? I get it, but it's not necessarily about the process. It's about, all right, first of all, are my mailers profitable? And why are they not profitable? So I go back to my talk paths. We listen to those first, right? And then I go back to my lead management system, right? And I find out, am I following up on that prospect once they're quoted and we can't close them? So then I start developing from that, what type of metrics in outbound calls should I have that are finding success with that strategy? Then you build out your metrics for success. Don't ask somebody else's metrics for success. Build your metric for success around your marketing strategies. Then I do live lead transfers. So they call on the lead, they get the lead into us, we address that lead. And there's a huge process around making sure that you address that lead so that they feel comfortable with kind of divulging, personal information to you. And then you're building rapport, you're working hard. Those need to be closed on the one call. They're in the market. If they're warm, they're actively looking, others are calling them, right? So there's a huge process behind that. What does the follow-up process look like there? What does it look like in your pipeline if you can't close them, right? And then if I'm doing age data, that age data, we're kind of calling in, inviting ourselves into their lives. And that's a different type of whole process there. And then you have to have metrics around it to try to understand. There's a process around it. But overall, because I do so many live lead transfers and I get my agents up to bat, at least 3 to 4 each agent times a day. Okay. I get them up to bat. They have to get themselves up to bat twice a day. So they're averaging between 4 to 7 quoted households a day. When you're doing that and you're following up on that pipeline, you should have a minimum of connected outbound calls for us. Connected meaning hitting a voicemail, getting an answer, 40 a day. Connected. Connected outbound. So I want to make sure you're following up on your pipeline, right? And so from there, guys, we make sure that I'm not the only one that's bringing food to the table, because if I'm constantly bringing food to the table, I'm going to go broke. So my agents have to bring food to the table as well, which means 2 self-generated quoted households, whether you get it from referrals, cross-sell, inside our lead management tool to call on and generate ourselves. But if they don't actually self-produce and get their own business, then they get cut off from the lead sources that I'm providing until they end up getting that number back up. So man, it's a myriad of things.
It's deep.
Yeah, but we talk about so much of the surface crap, and then we let someone else's surface stuff dictate our entire path for our agencies, and we keep finding failure. We have to go in a deeper dive before we ever start making that transition into that growth mode. Anytime you make a change, you go into growth mode. You got to be willing to lose money. You got to be willing to grind out a process behind it and hold it accountable. And you got to be willing to measure the process. If you don't want to do those three things, man, you're going to continue just to kind of wing it and hope you get a good LSP that figures out their own process in your agency and can handle it themselves. And all you're doing is trying to support them while they're figuring out the process and finding their success. But once those guys find their success and they figure out how to repeat it, they're like, why do I need you? Those people will go on to greener pastures and they'll figure something else out. So that's honestly an overall of what I talk to other agents about. I surround myself with guys that are doing a lot better than I am. And then I start asking them about their marketing. I find out what they're doing. And then when they're telling me how they do it, then I'm trying to figure out, is this a good fit for my agency? Is this a good fit for my agency culture? Can I see Julie or Lawrence or Ariana or Christina or anybody else doing this? Does it fit their personalities? And then when I decide that I'm going to go into growth mode into that marketing strategy, then I interview my agents. I ask them, hey, if I bring leads to you in this manner, and this is the sales process, would this be a fit? Could you see yourself coming in every day and being happy with being able to write business this way or being able to conduct your day like this? If they can't, man, and I don't get 100% buy-in, I am not putting a square peg in a round hole in it. That is all of our problems. And then if I find failure, how can I scale failure? I can't. It doesn't work. So that's it, man. It needs to be from a much deeper dive in which we ask people about their processes and their metrics, a much deeper dive. And that's where I don't answer a lot of people when they say how many outbound calls or how many this and that. What's my marketing plan? What marketing strategies do I have? And then what are my processes around that? And then what metrics support that and hold it accountable to convert that marketing to a client, and that gives me that ROI. That's what you can scale, brother. Once you found out, you go through the growth mode, you spend the money, you lose the money, you find out what works. Once you find what works, man, then you scale. You invest more in that and you scale it. And a lot of times, even when you're scaling, that marketing strategy can hit a stumbling block. Like, right, outbound telemarketing, hit a stumbling block. We've got spam, likely spam. All these major carriers are participating now, throwing a huge stumbling block into our, call to contact ratios. And that took me from 7 telemarketers in-house down to 1 because I just couldn't keep up with it anymore. So I'd rather pay another company to handle all that. And they bring the live transfers to me now. So you have to, even though you're scaling and find success, there's always going to be a roadblock in that. And your metrics could tell you you're doing everything right. But there are a lot of things and a lot of variables. So you also have to be nimble and willing to go back to growth mode in another marketing strategy to supplement what the other marketing strategy took a dive for, like mailers. All of a sudden, the postmaster, what were they doing? They weren't delivering. They were 2 weeks behind. Our renewal dates were being missed like crazy. My response rate went from like 1.35 down to like 0.6. I was writing half the business from the mailer strategy that I had. So I had to go back into another mode, another strategy that I was working on, that I was scaling, and I had to boost all of that and scale that, and I still hit my number. So a lot of people can't react. They live and die by their marketing strategies. They don't revisit their marketing strategy every month to see what's going on. They just kind of rinse and repeat because they don't want to upset the apple cart. And and they die on the vine.
We're all guilty of that. You definitely struck a chord with the whole telemarketing thing, because I have 2 in-house telemarketers, and their daily average transfer has gone down, and no matter how many outbound calls they're making, that number still hasn't quite changed, and so that's something that has become a challenge. You bring up an interesting point there.
Yeah, There's a just side note, caller ID reputation is fantastic for making sure your outbound dialer ID numbers are not being blocked. And when they do, they need to address that. So there's a man, when you're looking at your
Not
numbers,
just changing your phone number every 2 weeks.
you it's best to try to work with that same number and work with that, because if you have the ability to change your phone number, then you are definitely able to do that. But who's to say that number you're changing to is not already blocked as well?
Yeah.
So it's best to try to work with the number you got in many cases. And there's ways to actually buy numbers. Big companies buy that marketing and buy that technology to vet a phone number that's not spam before they buy it and bring it on. So it's not within our realm as a small little agent, you know? So look, things change. Marketing strategies change. Telemarketing, outbound telemarketing, guys, look, if that's giving you a heck and you're not getting your ROI, you need to look at, go back into growth mode, look at another marketing strategy, develop a process around it that's proven. Fine. When you figure out a marketing strategy that your agents like, that you think your agency would do well with, then you start asking agency owners, hey, Nick, I hear you're successful with this. What is your sales process? What's your talk path like? How are you getting such a high close ratio? How are you growing from this? Oh, really? Can I talk to your most successful agent and see how they're handling that? And then create your process around that. That's the part you need to be talking to other agents about, their process, right? Most agency owners, they may not know it. They just have an excellent LSP or, an agent that has just the skills and the talent to be able to do it. Find out what it is. And if it's not the right fit, Nick, if what she's telling you or he is telling you as far as successful and what they're doing to be successful, if it doesn't fit for your current agents, then don't bring that strategy in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And then establish your metrics behind that. Okay, the agent that's making this many outbound calls and doing this much, lead management activity, and doing all these things, that's the metrics. And now I want to see if I can repeat this across the board with everybody. So it just goes so much deeper in it. It really does.
Oh yeah, it does. That's what I'm getting at is, so you're saying that every sales process is different, right?
Yeah.
For every,
strategy, for every strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that I struggle with is, we don't move, we've incrementally, grown, our, what we sell monthly, but I'm trying to find out ways to get my producers to just higher levels of production. So, in other words, we've gotten every producer, our new minimum is 20,000, and it used to be like 16,000 a couple years ago. And, for the most part, everyone's over 20,000 now, but a great month for some of my guys is like 35K, 40K is a great month. But how do we get that even higher? And that's something that, the stuff that you're telling me is that it starts from the top down. And so there's something that I'm not doing that's limiting some of these people that are probably capable, right? If you take my top producer and put him under you, he's probably gonna, sell 60,000 or 70,000, or put them under Craig, they're gonna sell even more. So
yeah, it all depends, Nick, on how everything in your agency is being, how you're managing numbers. It's so much better to have an incredibly encouraging conversation with somebody and say, you know what, I see the effort, right? You're making this many outbound calls. You have this much talk time. You're filling your day with activity. Why don't we take the activity and let's look at the talk paths. Let's pull the calls. If all the activity's there, right? And the marketing is still strong. Then at that point, you look at the sales process. Let's pull the calls. Let's listen to them. Let's see if actually you're letting people off the hook or if you're going for a one call close, right? Let's see what we're trying to do here in the process. And if there's a breakdown, there's a failure. The other thing is let's say everything's going right, but you can't close business because you're so much higher. You can't overcome that price, unfortunately, when it's just so much higher. Are we marketing in the right areas where our current carrier wants to do business?
Yeah.
So if you're not tracking that data, it's hard to tweak the business and tweak the direction of that marketing strategy to find success. So there was no one else that could help me. I had to literally build my own website to do it. I literally had to build my own website for my agency to track my data and know those numbers. It's ridiculous. But if as long as you're doing that, whether Excel spreadsheet or whatever it might be internally, you can figure out how to scale. And if once you get in scale mode, that is when it is exponentially more profitable.
Yeah.
But growth mode, you're always got to be willing to lose that money, willing to stick it out, willing to develop a process and hold accountable. If you're not willing to do that, guys, it's chaos is not going to organize chaos. It just won't happen. So, but I love it, man. I know you're doing really well, and you're obviously repeating stuff every day that's finding success, especially when you have agents that are meeting a minimum of 20 grand. We have a minimum of 25 grand here, maybe a little different market than you, but with all the marketing that I put in my plan and my process, if someone doesn't hit 25 grand, I can go back to their metrics. I can go back to the coaching. I can look exactly how many times they watch the CWC videos. I can do all of that. And I can help them and positively help them out the door and say, you're just not the right fit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're under the bar, and I worked with you, but you're under the bar on everything, which is why you didn't hit here. You can't blame me. I'm out. So that's where I'm at.
Let me ask you with with certain lead sources. So like I guess this is just a personal question, a selfish question, if you may. I don't put any filters on my leads. I just feel like, if it's a phone number and somebody answers, it's a good lead, and a lot of times the lead companies will sell you, it's a premium lead and they're not answering, they're disconnected. It's like almost the same.
No.
So that's kind of
all clickbait. Yeah. When you're buying leads, a lot of it's just clickbait. It's just baiting to get them to click that information, auto-populate the form and fill it out and capturing data. When you start sniffing that out, right, and then you need to change your lead source. There are some honest companies out there. You just got to find them.
Yeah.
But I'd say the most honest data out there, like you said, if you're doing telemarketing, is buying. And I've got a pretty cool strategy I'm trying to vet out now, but I'm obviously not going to talk about it until I vet it. But I'd buy some age data. I really would. I buy some age data where you do have cell phones in that data. And if you can buy it verified, then it is very, very good data. And then you scrub it and you don't obviously call on the DNC, but that's the data I'd be going after. And you'll be, instead of spending $5, $6, $7, $8 a lead, you'll basically create a huge database. And then from that database, you can use your lead management systems to start generating opportunity in a direct marketing approach towards that. Instead of calling, you can start email campaigns, and you can start other campaigns, mailing campaigns, and so forth, based on qualified data. So oftentimes we don't have to buy quote unquote fresh web leads in order to yield the results that we need. You create a process around it, interview the people that are doing it, ask them how they're doing it, and basically repeat that process. Then build metrics around that. Look at your metrics on the daily to hold them accountable. And I'm telling you, once you're out of that growth mode and you figure out what works, then you scale the heck out of it until it doesn't work anymore. Then you move. So that's kind of how it works, man. And a lot of us don't do it. Some of us are lazy, honestly. Some of us are too distracted. And some of us like to come in and not have a plan for the day and let the clients or let the day manage us. And those people are the ones that can never establish a process and never repeat anything. But I was that guy. And I'm telling you right now, being that guy and being intentional with what I'm doing and what I'm repeating every day is the only way to break that mindset.
Do you have all of your, do you have all of this written down? Like, have you had to write every single thing that you're talking about, on this video? Do you have every one of your processes written down in fine detail?
Absolutely, man. It's just, I have 3 different processes. That's it for my 3 different marketing strategies. That's it. Stupid simple.
Yeah.
So stupid simple. So It's very easy, guys. I mean, everybody should go on that same venture. I actually coach it. I actually break it down for people and go through it. It takes hours and hours and hours of committed work to do it. But once you have it and you're able to understand your numbers and understand how to let those guide you, because they don't lie. The numbers don't lie. How many times have you walked into a lead or as an agent walked into your office like, I just closed the quote from this and this lead source. They're awesome. Yeah. And you're like, oh, sweet, renew, bye. Right. And you buy more leads, you renew, and then you go back and look 3 months later and like, oh my God, I spent $10,000 with these guys. And we only sold one policy from that one time that girl walked into my office and told me how excited they were.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times, come on, we're all guilty of that. Shoot from the hip. So
after talking with you, at the Craig Wiggins event here in Vegas, one of the first things, and then Todd was also speaking.
Oh, that guy is a maniac.
You guys are definitely like in that same, frequency. And one of the first things I did when I went back to the office was I checked out all of the zip codes that I was buying leads from that I had literally I'm like, in the last year, I've maybe closed, or in the last 6 months, I've closed 3 items from this zip code. I'm like, I don't even know how much money I've spent on this zip code, but I am not buying from this zip code anymore. And then updating that, quarterly or monthly. Like, what do you recommend? Is update that monthly, quarterly?
Oh, monthly, absolutely monthly. If you don't know what zip codes are profitable within your business, no matter what business you're running, and you don't know where you're getting all your business from, I want to tell you the reason why zip codes are so specific, because like-minded people tend to congregate together and live in the same areas. And if you find that honey hole where Allstate or State Farm or any other carrier that you're with or any other business model, they say, hey, we have a product that is perfect for this type of client and we want their business, buddy, when you find that zip code, then you go through all your marketing strategies. You mail them, you get live transfers from there, you buy age data from there, and you start concentrating on those specific zips. In your close ratio, what you'll find, my close ratio is about 6 or 7% higher than the market, just because of that, just because of zip codes, and because I have obviously a process and I repeat it, and I hold my zip codes and my marketing strategies accountable. I hire and fire zip codes on the daily. I really do.
Yeah.
And that's always, zip codes are kind of a growth thing. You're always grinding, finding out what's profitable, venturing within a marketing strategy, venturing into a new subset of zip codes, and then tracking that data and see what zip codes are profitable out of it. And then you may spend a couple grand to figure out those other zip codes suck, and then you keep moving.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
All right.
I've got a couple more questions for you.
All right.
Absolutely. And we're gonna end this thing because these, what's it called? I don't even know how far. I don't know how long we're on this video so far. I think close to maybe 45 minutes. So we're gonna wrap this up here. But a couple more questions for you is, what was your aha moment? When things clicked for you, was it a piece of advice that you got, or what necessarily happened? What was your aha moment?
There's a guy named Rudy that drove down about an hour and 45 minutes from around 30 minutes from my agency. I spoke with him. He was leading in my market, and I came to him just like others would come to me and say, man, what are you doing? He says, man, it's not about that. it's what are you doing? Let's find out. He drove down, came into my office, sat down, and started going through some of our processes. And it realized that was my aha moment. It's, oh my gosh, here I am living in chaos, thinking just adding people is going to solve my problem. And I have abandoned everything I knew, and I need to go back to process. Once you establish a process and accountability, you won't be afraid to spend money, because at that point in time, you know that the money that you're about to spend is going to prove and generate an ROI. That's scale. That's when you're scaling. That's when big businesses are scaling. When they say, this is the target market that it fits, this is the money it's going to take, and this is our process when the marketing comes in to convert it to a client, we can scale this profitably. And that's what big businesses do. And that's what we should be doing as small business owners, is finding that process. That was my aha moment when he came down and poured into me that one day. And ever since then, he and I have been very good friends, and he holds me accountable on the daily, and I as well. And that was it. Was, hey, first of all, I told him, he came to me and says, why are you not marketing? Why are you not spending money? It's going to take money to make money. I said, man, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that it's not going to work. And then I'm going to be out $5,000 that I should have my savings account or have my checking account. He says, dude, you cannot think like that. The reason why you're thinking like that is because you don't hold it accountable. You have no way to measure. If you're not willing to go through growth, then you can't scale. That's the mindset we all have. We dabble in it. We don't get through the full growth period to figure out what works. We don't track anything, so we don't know if it's really working or not. So we're afraid to invest in it and try to scale it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my problem. That was my aha moment. And then I started really calculating everything and managing it from there. Rip the Band-Aid off and go do it. I'm telling you, you will find a sense of courage and bravery with your finances that you've never found before, because you know that what you're about to put in, you're going to get out and then some.
Ryan, so I just want to acknowledge you, man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the person that you are, man. I get a ton of value, man. Might have been the most silent I have been on any of my guests that I've had, because I'm just taking in everything that you're saying, man. And so I appreciate you, and I'm honestly grateful to be your friend, and I'm excited for, getting to know you more over the next couple of years.
Absolutely,
But my last question for you, brother, is it's how I end every one of my interviews. And you can make it insurance related, agency related, business related, or you can make it kind of life related. But this question is the title of this series is called A1 Agents. And when I looked up the definition of A1, it's to the highest standard, right? The highest, kind of principles. And so the question I like to ask people are, what are 3 standards that you live by? And if you're, great grandkids, or maybe another insurance, business owner pulls up this video and it's the only video that they have of you, right? The only way that they're going to be able to get this information from you, what are those 3 standards or principles that you live your life by?
Gosh, first one in sales, I've always lived by this one is always sell the truth every day. Sell the truth better than the other guy. All right. A lot of us will compromise that in order to close a deal. A true salesperson will close the deal based on the truth. That's the way you live your life too. You, with your wife, with your kids, girlfriend, you need to speak the truth. Sometimes you can sell the truth better than the next guy, right? But always sell the truth in your life. Always sell the truth. Selling lies is basically building your house on sand. It really is. The third one, I tell you what, keep it all in perspective.
I think that was sell the truth.
The second one. No, sorry, second one.
Number 2.
That was one. Okay, I was trying to get by on you, right? The second one is always prioritize what's most important to you in life, and then everything else will fall in line. It really will. We spend too much time making our mark on this world, whereas our friends, our family, right, our children, they're our mark. And I learned that from, gosh, what was that movie? Jack Frost. Remember that Jack Frost? His
A snowman movie?
Yeah, I've watched that movie, Jack Frost, or something. He said, I was always spending my time trying to make my mark in this world, where my mark was my family. So a lot of times business is not your mark on this world. Your children, your wife, your family, whoever it might be that's important in your life, that's your mark. And I just started living into that a few years ago. And then the third one, man, I don't know. I'll tell you this. I'm subservient. As far as faith-based, I'm subservient to something. That's always guided me and kept me humble. Being subservient to something, whatever it might be. I think that is something that is very much needed in the world today, to know that you are not here by chance is something, you're here for a purpose, and be subservient to that. I think that's three things that I would want people to remember about me.
That's awesome, man. Very stoic, man. You're very stoic, you know. So
Okay.
if know your numbers and stoicism was a person, man, it'd be Ryan Chao. Chao.
Chao.
Chao. Chao.
Chao with a CH.
So man, thank you so much for your time, man. I can't
All right,
wait.
brother.
I can't wait to rewatch this, and I'm sure you're gonna add a ton of value to agents all over the place, man. Especially my audience. So if they wanted to find you, how can they find you? If you want them to find you, I know you said you might be coming out with a podcast soon, as well as I know you're on Facebook. But if you want people to find you, how could they find you?
I think there's two good ways. You can find me on Craig Wiggins Coaching. I've obviously you can connect with me through there, or you can, I don't know. I do have a couple other emails. I think Ryan, RYAAN at fullcirclega.com is a good one. Or you can just find me at Craig Wiggins Coaching. Look up Craig Wiggins Coaching, and you'll find all of us, and exceptional people on that platform as well. But find us there, find me there. You can always email me, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as possible.
Awesome.
All right, brother.
Ryan, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.